guys? Open Ice Hits with Scotty 2 Hockey. It's been a while, I know, long time no see, and what I want to talk about today is just the frustration of being a Habs fan this year. This year is unbelievable to me, because coming into the year in the first 10 or 15 games, this team looked good. This team looked like a team that could compete. Drouin was on fire. Carey Price was playing pretty well. Overall, I liked the defense. There could have been more scoring in the forwards, but overall, I thought they were a competitive team, and I thought they would make the playoffs. I honestly, truly thought they would make the playoffs. If you've seen my preseason predictions, I thought Montreal would make the playoffs and they would win a round. They were looking really good. They were looking like a team that finally was going to make it into playoffs and weren't going to miss for the fourth time in 5 years, third straight year in a row. But there's a multitude of things that have happened to this team, and it's not excuses that have caused them to miss the playoffs. Some of it is just bad luck, injuries, and some of it is things that they can go out and fix and they got to go out and address. And another thing I'd like to talk about is, why does Marc Bergevin's plan with this team now? They say he wants to retool. He wants to build around Price and Weber, bring in all these young prospects, and eventually they'll be good enough to be a contending team. By the time they are good enough, Price and Weber will be at the end of their rope. They'll be at the end of their career. By the time Cole Caulfield, Alexander Romanov, Nick Suzuki are true elite players, are players that are going to make you a contending team, Carey Price and Shea Weber will be at the end of their career. They won't be in their prime. Shea Weber for sure. And injuries this season have killed Montreal. What sums up this season, above all to me, is frustration. If there's one word that I can use to sum up this season as a Habs fan, it's frustration. It's a lot of ups and downs. It's a lot of highs and lows. They got off to a pretty decent start. It wasn't a bad start to the season. Then all of a sudden, an 8-game losing streak comes. It looks like they have no chance of getting back into it. It looks like they're not going to bounce back. They're just going to continue this trend of slowly going down. And bang, all of a sudden they win a few games and they're back in a playoff spot. They're competitive again. Another 8-game losing streak happens. A bunch of injuries, they manage to fight through it, they get over the 8-game losing streak, and yes, they are a bit behind, but they get within 4 or 5 points of a playoff spot again. They look like they have a bit of hope. And then Shea Weber, our captain, our rock, out 4 to 6 weeks with an ankle injury, right after Jonathan Drouin comes back. Thomas Tatar is now day-to-day. The main reason why the Habs have struggled so much this year, I know myself personally, I put a lot of it on Carey Price. I expected more from Carey Price. His numbers are pretty decent now. They're average by his standards, but they're pretty decent. But there was a lot of times this year where he was just up and down. He wasn't the rock-solid goalie that deserves to get $10.5 million. But overall, everybody knows Carey Price is my favorite player, and I can't put this year on him. What really has devastated the Habs this year, above all, is injuries. Injuries have killed the Habs. Jonathan Drouin missed almost 40 games this year. Paul Byron's still out. He's going to miss 40 games this year. Yoel Armia missed an extended period of time. He was out 2 weeks or something. Yspiri Kotkaniemi, he was out a couple weeks. Brendan Gallagher missed a couple games. Who else was on the list? There's just Jordan Wheel right now is injured. There's just a variety of injuries that have killed this team. Key players, a team that depends on scoring by committee. They need their whole team to be there. They need Thomas Tatar, Philip Deneau, Brendan Gallagher, Yoel Armia, guys like Max Domi to be in the lineup and play their best hockey to be a truly competitive team. Because let's look at it. This team doesn't have any point-per-game forwards or anything like that. Right now, the leading scorers on the team are Tatar with 53 points, and it's a big drop-off from Tatar with Deneau, who has 40 points. Then Gallagher has 37 points, and both Domi and Suzuki had 36 points this year. So Montreal doesn't have an elite point-per-game center on their top line. They don't have any elite point-per-game forwards. They are a scoring by committee team. They need everybody to be into the lineup. They need to be healthy, and that's the only way they're truly going to stay competitive. And 1 or 2 injuries they can get over. The scoring depth can come up. They showed that when Drouin went out. Yes, I know they went a bit sideways, but after a while they picked it up and ended up getting into a playoff spot. But then all of a sudden, Price started playing bad. Gallagher went down. A heart and soul player like Gallagher went down. Armia went down after him, a guy who kills penalties. And it's just one thing after another with this team. And they just can't seem to get back into a playoff spot and get comfortable. And right now, it really does look like the season's over. Like I said, the word that sums up this season for me as a Habs fan personally is frustration, especially with the expectations I had coming into this season. Right now, currently, they only have 61 points. They're 5th in the Atlantic, which the top 3 in the Atlantic is pretty solid this year. They're 7 points back of 3rd in the Atlantic, and the team that they're 7 points back of, the Toronto Maple Leafs, has 2 games in hand in them. There's only 23 games left for the Habs in the season, 25 left for Toronto. They're 8 points back of the second wild card held by the Philadelphia Flyers, and they're 2 games with 2 more games played than Philadelphia as well. Philadelphia has 2 games in hand at Montreal. So they got a ton of ground to cover. They literally need to win like 19 out of their next 23 games to truly even have a shot of getting in the playoffs. And with Shea Weber out of the lineup 4 to 6 weeks, Max Domi not performing like he should. I expected a lot more from Domi this year. Carey Price has been pretty solid. Carey Price the last 6-7 games has been solid. Looks like he's going to be lights out and looks like he's going to do everything he can to drag this team into the playoffs. But unfortunately, I just don't think he's going to be able to do that. I had more optimism earlier in the season when there was a lot more ground to make up, when there was 40, 45 games left. There's 23 games left for the Habs, guys. They're 8 points out of a playoff spot. The team that they're chasing has 2 games in hand, and there's 2 teams ahead of them chasing those teams. Carolina and I can't remember who the other team is, but Carolina, and there's another team that's ahead of Montreal that's chasing the wild card spot as well. So the wild card spot pretty much seems like it's out of hand. The only realistic chance to have it getting in the playoffs is if the Maple Leafs completely fall off. Florida's the other team. If the Maple Leafs and Florida completely fall off the rails and Montreal wins as many of their next 23 games as they can, like a 90% winning average, that's the only way they're getting into the playoffs. It's like a 2.5% chance of them getting into the playoffs. So overall, this year has just been absolutely frustrating. There's not much more I can say about it than that. And another thing that has killed the Habs this year, that has blown my mind above all, is losing to these inferior teams. Like losing to Detroit 3 games. To Detroit, the worst team in the league. Losing 2 games to New Jersey. Losing an overtime game to Ottawa. A game that it looked like you were going to win and they gave up a goal in the last minute and then went into overtime and lost. Losing to Columbus, a team who on paper you should beat. And then going out and beating teams like Toronto. Going out and beating teams like Washington. Going out and beating good teams. And losing to these inferior teams, which the majority of the teams they have played this year have been inferior teams. It's disgusting. It's frustrating as hell as a Habs fan, and there's no excuses for it. Which is why, in my opinion, I know a lot of Habs fans are going to hate this, but at the end of this year, it's time to bring in a new fresh face, either behind the bench or as a GM. Personally, in my opinion, I've been a Marc Bergevin supporter. I've liked the prospects he's brought up. I've liked what he's done drafted the past few years. But he doesn't have the winning history. The Habs have missed 4 out of the past 5 years. The guy's been around for 8 years, said he had a 5-year plan. It's on year number 8, and it looks like it's all going downhill. So personally, I think they may need to bring in a new GM. They may need to bring in a new set of eyes, a guy who has a different plan for this team. Because this whole retool and holding on to Price and Weber and hoping you can build players around them to eventually be good enough to make the playoffs, you're not going to contend like that. They need a better idea of what they're going to do. They need a clearer message. And unless they really, really turn it around and they really, really show me something this year, I don't understand how Marc Bergevin can keep his job. I really don't. Juliander's a case for sure. Losing to these inferior teams kill me. Giving up these last-minute goals at the end of a period kills me. But a lot of that is on the players. You can't put that on Julian. And personally, I do like him as a coach. But Marc Bergevin, I don't know how he keeps his job at the end of this year, especially with the way things are going. The only way I can see him keeping his job is using the excuse, well, injuries killed us. Injuries killed us. They did. Injuries overall did kill him, but it was a majority of things. The goalie not being there when he was absolutely needed to. The scoring not coming through when it was absolutely needed to be depended on. The defense falling apart at times. Having these 2 8-game losing streaks, which is absolutely shameful for a franchise like the Montreal Canadiens. So as a fan, it's disgusting. It's frustrating. And even 2 games ago, when they beat the Toronto Maple Leafs, they were only 5 points back. And Toronto only had 1 game in hand. There was a glimmer of hope. There was still a glimmer of hope. And then bang, they lose 2 in a row and Shea Weber's out 4 to 6 weeks. Like, where is the hope to now? It's pretty much gone. So as a Habs fan, I'm absolutely frustrated, and I'm sorry about the rant, guys. But let me know what you think of this season. Let me know your thoughts on this season and how you feel, what your stand is as a Habs fan. Please, if you can, smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, and of course, have a great day. Scotty 2 Hockey, Open Ice Hits, over and out.